July 7, 1933, British Intelligence Headquarters, London. The air inside the dimly lit office was thick with cigarette smoke and the faint hum of typewriters echoing down the corridor. Amid the usual chatter of decoded transmissions, a single message arrived that stirred quiet unease among the higher ranks. Intelligence suggested that a radical faction calling itself the DAK Party was planning to incite riots in Berlin, a plot aimed at toppling the current power and seizing control of the city. Reports indicated they had begun storing weapons in an abandoned industrial factory on the outskirts of Berlin. For Britain, the matter was not of direct concern, yet the information was too delicate to ignore. The higher-ups agreed that it warranted verification, but without attracting unwanted attention. To handle this discreetly, they turned to a branch so secret that even within MI6, few dared speak its name. It was known simply as Null. Only 16 agents belonged to Null, ghosts within the intelligence world. No records, no traces, no recognition. Their existence was a whisper, their actions a rumor. Among them was Charles Hayes, the agency's youngest operative, 20 years old, sharp-minded, charming, and insufferably confident. He had never failed a mission. Now he was being sent alone into the heart of Berlin. His orders were simple: establish contact with Franz Keller, a British operative planted deep within Germany, and confirm the truth behind the rumors. Observe but do not act. Yet in the world of espionage, nothing ever remains that simple. It was a windy, rain-soaked night as Charles Hayes crossed quietly into Berlin on a small boat gliding through the dark waters. The city loomed ahead, its dim lights flickering beneath the heavy storm clouds. On the riverbank stood Franz Keller, waiting silently beneath an umbrella, the collar of his coat pulled high against the cold wind. When the boat touched land and their eyes met for the first time, neither man needed words. They both knew. The exchange was brief, just a nod, before they turned and disappeared into the night, heading toward Keller's modest safe house on the outskirts of the city. To the world, Franz Keller was nothing more than a 34-year-old railway worker, a man of ordinary habits and unremarkable life. But beneath that simple exterior lay a different truth, one buried deep in secrets, codes, and years of espionage. Inside the small, dimly lit apartment, Keller briefed Charles on the situation. He spoke of the factory on the city's edge, where the Dare Aufbruchskriegs parties had begun stockpiling weapons. The facility was heavily guarded by the group's soldiers, commanded by Hauptsturmführer Erwin Merler, a man in his early 40s whose reputation was as ruthless as it was feared. For the neighbors' sake, Keller and Hayes agreed on a cover story. Charles would pose as Keller's cousin from Italy. It was a convincing disguise. Hayes spoke nearly every European language with effortless fluency. Still, the tension in Berlin was palpable. One wrong move, one hint of suspicion, and you didn't live to explain yourself. The next morning, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets of Berlin damp and glistening under a pale gray sky. The air carried a strange stillness, the kind that lingered after a storm heavy with secrets. Charles sat by the narrow window of Keller's apartment, watching people move through the streets below. Soldiers in brown uniforms patrolled the corners, their boots echoing against the cobblestones. Every face seemed guarded, every whisper measured. Keller entered the room, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Welcome to Berlin," he muttered, setting one on the table. "You'll find it's not as friendly as London." Charles smirked slightly. "I've been to worse places." Keller pulled out a folded map from his coat pocket and spread it across the table. "Here," he said, pointing to a red-marked circle on the city's outskirts. "The factory. Officially, it's listed as a metalworks facility, abandoned 2 years ago. Unofficially, it's crawling with Dare Aufbruchskriegs soldiers. Merler himself visits twice a week." Charles leaned closer. "And their weapons? Crates of rifles, ammunition, even explosives," Keller replied. "They're planning something big. The rumors say they want to ignite a riot, use it as a spark for a full-scale takeover. Charles ran a hand through his hair. Then we need proof. Photographs, documents, something tangible to send back to London. Keller hesitated. That won't be easy. They've turned the whole area into a fortress. Charles's grin returned, that sharp, confident grin that had unsettled even his own superiors. Good, he said, finishing his coffee. Fortresses are fun to break into. That night, under the cloak of darkness, Charles began preparing. He packed light, a small pistol, a camera, a few forged papers, and a lockpick kit neatly tucked inside his coat. Keller handed him a key. Safe house number 3 near the river, he said quietly. If anything goes wrong, disappear. Outside, the streets were quiet again. The flicker of distant lights reflected on wet pavement as Charles disappeared into the Berlin night, a ghost among shadows, walking straight toward danger. Midnight, Berlin slept under a shroud of fog. The moon struggled behind thick clouds as Charles Hayes moved silently through the narrow alleys, his coat slick with mist, his footsteps drowned by the distant rumble of trains. The air smelled of iron and rain. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, then silence again. He reached the edge of the industrial district, an ocean of rusted warehouses and empty chimneys. The factory loomed ahead, an enormous shadow against the pale skyline. Its broken windows stared out like hollow eyes. From afar, it seemed dead, but Charles knew better. He crouched behind an overturned crate, raising his binoculars. Faint movements, 2 guards at the gate, rifles slung across their shoulders. A truck idled nearby, its headlights off. Charles noted the insignia painted on its side, a black circle enclosing a red rising sun, the mark of the Dare Offbruch Grays. He slipped forward, blending into the fog, his every step measured. A sharp metallic click echoed, a soldier lighting a cigarette near the fence. Charles froze, heart pounding, then moved again when the glow of the match faded. Reaching the factory wall, he pulled a small grappling hook from his belt. The hook caught silently on a rusted beam. He climbed, muscles tight, rain sliding down his gloves. As he reached the top, he swung over and landed inside a shadow among shadows. The factory smelled of oil, sweat, and gunpowder. Crates were stacked in long rows, each marked with coded stamps. Charles crouched, snapped open his camera, and began taking pictures, the quiet click of the shutter sounding deafening in the silence. Then a noise. Footsteps close. Charles doused his small flashlight and slipped behind a pile of crates. 2 soldiers entered, talking in hushed German. One laughed, kicking a box open. Inside, rifles, neatly lined, polished, and ready. Der Sturm beginnt bald, one said. The storm begins soon. Charles's grip tightened on his pistol. His pulse thundered. He waited, one breath, 2, until the men turned away. Then he moved again, silent as a whisper, deeper into the darkness. At the far end of the factory stood a locked steel door. A faint light glowed beneath it. He knelt, picked the lock, click, and pushed it open just enough to see inside. A large table dominated the room. Around it stood 5 men in black coats. On the wall behind them hung a massive map of Berlin marked with red lines and circles, riot zones. At the head of the table stood a tall man with sharp eyes and a scar cutting across his cheek, Hauptsturmführer Erwin Merler. Charles felt his stomach tighten. This was no small uprising, this was an organized coup. He raised his camera once more, click. Merler's head snapped up. Jemand ist hier, he growled, someone's here. Charles froze, the sound still echoing faintly in the steel chamber. The soldiers turned, grabbing their rifles. The light swung wildly as boots thundered toward the door. Charles bolted. Through the crates, past the shadows, his breath ragged in the cold air. Bullets tore through the wood behind him. Splinters flew. He dove behind a barrel, returning fire once, then ran again, straight for the rear window. He crashed through the glass, landing hard on the wet ground below. Sirens blared. The night erupted in chaos, shouts, flashlights, gunfire. Charles sprinted into the fog, blood dripping from a cut on his cheek, clutching the camera tight against his chest. Behind him, the factory burned with light and rage. Ahead, the dark streets of Berlin stretched endlessly, dangerous, silent, alive. And in that moment, Charles Hayes understood one thing clearly: the storm had already begun.